Has nature ever made you feel uncomfortable to watch? That's what we see when we see parasitic birds, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods talking about nature one small step at a time. There's just times in nature where you just feel uncomfortable. You didn't see something violent or dramatic. It's just something that you notice, and now you see it. You just can't look away, I guess. And that's how I feel every time I think about brood parasitic birds. And so my friend and I went out. We've been hiking in our local federal marsh. And, even when we're in all sorts of different woods and situations, we always see brown-headed cowbirds. They have a high-pitched squeak. You can always tell what they sound like. But in that same outing last week, we saw a black-billed cuckoo and a yellow-billed cuckoo. And those are three different birds with three different levels of commitment to the same wild strategy that makes us feel uncomfortable when we see it, which is to let somebody else raise your children. Today, we're going to talk about what brood parasites are and why they do what they do and what it costs the birds on one end or the other end. I want to say up front, this isn't a villain story. These birds didn't sit down and decide to be sneaky. It's just one of a bunch of different ways birds figure out to survive. And it's hard to watch at times, but it is what it is. So let's get into it. We'll start out actually talking about what the spectrum is here. And it surprised me too once I started digging into it. I was really curious. What exactly is the mechanism here? It's funny because when I see brown-headed cowbirds, I'm always like, well, those things. They're all standing around like a bunch of teenagers with nothing to do. And the reason they don't have anything to do is because they put out their parenting on somebody else's shoulder. So then I groan at them. But then I see a black-billed or a yellow-billed cuckoo, and I kind of dig these birds. And then I thought, there's really no different. It's not different. And so maybe I should give the brown-headed cowbirds a bit of a break. But basically, there is an obligated brood parasite, meaning all in. The female cowbird does not build a nest, ever. She doesn't incubate eggs. She never raises her young. And the entire reproductive strategy is to find other bird nests, lay eggs in them, and then walk away. That's it. That's her whole plan. And that is the brown-headed cowbirds. Then you got our two cuckoos, black-billed cuckoo, yellow-billed cuckoo, and they do what is called facultative parasites. So most of the time, they do the normal bird thing. They build a nest, they raise their own young, and every so often, opportunistically, the female will slip an egg into another bird's nest too. It's not their whole strategy. It's more like a side bet. Maybe something happens to this I'll go up, put another egg in the other one. But the cowbirds, like I said, are fully committed to this lifestyle. And cuckoos, while mostly play it straight, aren't above hedging their bets when an opportunity is right there. Spotting all three of these in one outing, like I did a few days ago, was just a nice little snapshot of the whole spectrum in action. So why does a bird do this? What's the actual payoff? And building a nest takes energy. Incubating eggs takes energy and time. You're sitting still, you're vulnerable. Feeding chicks takes an enormous amount of energy, and it takes time, weeks over weeks. And every one of those steps is a cost. Every one of those steps is a danger. It's a chance for something to go wrong, a predator to find the nest, the weather to turn bad, or maybe food to run short. A female cowbird skips all of that, which means she's not limited to one nest, one clutch, a season worth of effort. She lays eggs across many different nests in a single season. She's spreading her reproductive bets wide instead of betting on everything in one carefully tended nest. And some of the parasitic species, especially the cuckoos over Europe, there's an extra layer to it of egg mimicry. The parasite's egg can look remarkably close to the host's own egg in color and in pattern, so even the host bird that's paying attention might not really catch it. The deception isn't behavioral, it's just, the way the eggs look themselves, but it's an efficient strategy. Kind of cold, but certainly efficient. So here's the hard part to watch. When a cowbird or a cuckoo lays an egg in a host nest, There's rarely a neutral addition. Oftentimes, the parasite might even remove one of the host's own eggs to make room for theirs. So right out of the gate, the host bird lost one of their own before their chicks even had a chance to hatch. Then there's the hatching itself. The parasite chicks frequently hatch faster than most of the host chicks. So they tend to be bigger, more aggressive at begging at food. That means that they can outcompete the host's actual chick. Every worm, every insect that parent brings back, and in some harsher cases, particularly with the cuckoos, the parasite chicks will physically push the host eggs or the chicks right out of the nest. So like I said, this feels really uncomfortable. But, picture from the host side of things. A warbler or vireo builds a nest, works hard, incubates faithfully, and ends up pouring all that energy into raising a chick that isn't even hers, sometimes at the direct expense of the chicks that are. The ones that I've seen, brown-headed cowbirds and cuckoos are a little bit bigger than most of the birds. And so if you're bringing back worms and insects and whatever it is you're bringing back, most of the food going to the very first hatching, which happens to be this parasitic bird, also bigger. The birds usually tend to be bigger than the host birds are, more demanding, and like I said, more bullying occurs. And so it comes at the expense of their own chicks. And so that's the cost. And when I say yikes, that stinks. I'm along right there with you. I want to say really clear, the host bird didn't fail. The cowbird also wasn't trying to be cruel. It's two different survival strategies running into each other. And one of them costs the other something real. And sometimes you'll see that the hosts themselves, the host bird, will defend themselves. And then this is where it gets interesting. It's not a one-sided story entirely. Host birds are not defenseless, and over time, some species have developed real countermeasures for it. And so egg rejection is a big type of defense. Birds like the robin, the American robin, and the gray catbird have the ability to recognize an egg that doesn't belong. Different size, different colors, different patterns, and they will physically toss it out of the nest. Nest abandonment is another strategy. Some of the hosts will simply give up the nest that has the parasite egg in it and build a new one and then put its eggs in this new nest and then cutting off all the losses instead of investing in this nest and then having some. Mobbing is another more defensive behavior. We talked about last week, bird fighting. Birds will aggressively chase, harass cowbirds or cuckoos when they spot them lurking near their nest. They'll drive it off entirely before it has a chance to lay out. And so there's a species that hasn't developed any defense at all, and it's not a failure on their part. It's just, I think this is an arms race between the parasite birds and the host birds, and each species are simply doing something that the earlier versions of them had done too. I have read a book that was talking about yellow warblers and some other birds will often nest near red-winged blackbirds because they're so loud, they so aggressively defend their nest that when there's a red-winged blackbird nearby, first of all, the parasitic bird will get chased off by the red-winged blackbird, so there's a little bit of protection there. Secondly, the red-winged blackbird is so loud in its alarm call that the yellow warbler knows something was up. It hears the alarm call. So they'll often work together in cahoots to keep these parasitic birds away from their own nest. So this is where I really land on it. I think it's tempting to watch a cowbird and feel, a certain way. I have in the past, they're sneaky and they're selfish and whatever, word you want to use. Like I said, I see them standing on the side of the road. Oh, you have nothing better to do, like raise your own chicks? But, I guess that's projecting intention onto something that didn't choose this path. A cowbird didn't decide to be a freeloader, and the warbler didn't fail as a parent. These are two strategies that shaped over time and colliding when you have many birds with different kinds of nests in different situations happens all the time. And so it's hard to watch at times. I won't pretend otherwise. And when people see this happen in their own yards, it's hard to watch. It's not wrong. Some people say, oh, this is wrong. But, again, it's natural world. Some of the most honest things you can say about nature is that it just does what it does. They do what they do, and they do to the best of their ability what they can. And so if you're out birding this season and you spot a cowbird slipping around the edges of a warbler territory, or if you're lucky enough to catch a cuckoo doing the same kind of thing, you're not seeing a bird that is trying to do something wrong. You're watching what is going on at arm's length of behavior that's been going on for longer than any of us can really picture. I appreciate you watching. I hope that kind of helps you out in understanding, essentially the differences between what a parasitic bird is and what a host bird is, and the various ways they interact with each other. Appreciate you being out there. You can find everything I do at jillfromthenorthwoods.com. I am glad you're there, and I hope to see you next week.